Hi everyone, welcome to the second part of my Kenya-themed bullet journal setup for the month of August. I hope you enjoy this, and if you haven't seen the part one, maybe check that out. I've left a link down in the description box. So getting straight into it, the first page of this part of the setup is my mind map spread. And my mind map spread is a place where I can sort of dump any information that doesn't belong anywhere else in the journal. And I usually save one page for that, and then the other page I use to illustrate someone of either fame or recognition deserved from the country that I'm visiting. So firstly, what I decided to do on this page was just wrap some washi tape around the edges of where my painting was going to go. I do normally do coloured pencil for these illustrations, but because I had a beautiful rich dark skin to paint with, a lot of my pencils aren't going to get me that richness of colour, so I just wanted to use my paints, to be honest. But yeah, I wanted to use my gouache paint because I knew I could get a nice rich colour, and especially for this lady and this country, I think it deserves some real vibrance. So I'm using my Acryla Gouache from Holbein. This dries quickly and can be tricky to sort of get started. The colours tend to dry darker if they're lighter shades and then lighter if they're darker shades. So it definitely takes a little bit of practice, and I'm definitely still in my practicing area. I haven't done a lot of skin tones, especially in this shade as well. So it was a bit of a learning curve for me, but I had so much fun painting it. And now the lovely lady that I am painting is called Lupita Nyong'o. Lupita is a Kenyan actress. She was actually born in Mexico, but by the age of 1, she had moved back to Kenya, where her parents were from. Her dad was a Kenyan politician, and she was fully raised through Kenya throughout her life. And then she moved to America, I think it was New York, to study theatre and the arts, where she obviously excelled, as she then went on to receive some roles in TV quite quickly. And by her mid-20s, she was in feature films. And her first big one was after she received her master's from Yale in acting, and she went on to portray a character in 12 Years a Slave. Now, I haven't seen that movie, and now that I've sort of seen a little trailer of it, I really want to watch it. I had seen her before in the Black Panther series and a few other movies, but she's really talented. And in that 12 Years a Slave, she actually got nominated and won the Academy Award for the Best Supporting Actress, and she was the first Afro-Latina to win that title. So well done to her. She's a very talented lady and very beautiful. She won an award for that too by People magazine for being the most beautiful woman back in 2014. She's also won so many awards for acting, but she's also quite supportive of historic preservation, and she's vocal about preventing sexual harassment, working for women's and animal rights, and she's even written a children's book as well called Sulwe, which sounds like such a beautiful little story and went on to become a bestseller in the New York Times. And it also is being turned into an animation by Netflix. I think that was announced last year, so I'll have to keep my eyes peeled for that. It looks like a really sweet story. And last little fun fact is that she is in the top 50 of Africa's most powerful women. So the perfect choice for my mind map spread, I believe. And to be honest, when I saw her beauty and all the bright colors that she wears, I just thought it would be the perfect illustration in this setup. As you probably saw the last one, I've tried to inject color where I can and just really give off some Kenyan vibes throughout the setup. So using a lot of color on this page, and I mean a lot, I got started with my Acryla Gouache. Now, in terms of my technique with how I attacked this illustration, I wanted to paint her skin first and try and work on that first. And in hindsight, I'm not sure that I should have, because that's really where I had to practice and remember how to use gouache to get softer skin tones. I haven't had a lot of experience using the Acryla Gouache for skin, so some of it I did have to build up a bit to try and get the right effects. I am normally someone who blends a lot, and I find I just can't blend with Acryla Gouache. It dries too quickly. So in the end, I sort of decided to do more of a painterly effect and kind of keep some of my strokes visible, which I actually really like on other people's artwork a lot. So I'm trying to include that more and more as I can. If you were here a few months ago when I did the Netherlands setup, I actually did a rendition of A Girl with the Pearl Earring, and that painting I did I really enjoyed because I was so relaxed with how I put the paint on to the paper, and it was more about getting the paint strokes visible and sort of just having sections of colour rather than it all blending out into a soft skin tone, if you know what I mean. So that's pretty much where my mind was. I kind of wanted to get that effect going in this portrait as well. And then the colours on the outfit were just awesome, and patterns everywhere, and it just works. It just works with all these different colours and patterns. I'm really happy with how this painting turned out. And by using the headscarf, I used some washi tape, and that even got more colour involved. It was so much fun. Now, I did use this tribal kind of font for the title, which I think works well on this spread. And I also included the national flower for Kenya, which is down the bottom. You may be wondering what they are. They're not flames. They're actually petals from the flame lily, which isn't actually the national flower for Kenya, but it's the closest one that I could find. It came across it on a few websites. I don't think they have a national flower per se, but this one is the unofficial national flower. It's Gloriosa superba, and also known as the flame lily. Really cool looking flower, and went perfectly with these colours and design on this page. I felt like the shapes of the petals reflected the shapes of like the scarf that's around her neck and the headscarf, so just thought that made a nice tie into the composition of this page. And I finally got a use for my washi tape that I designed back in relation to Finland. This particular washi tape is inspired by Finland and a lot of the Marimekko designs, but it was my favorite washi tape that I created in that set. If you're wanting to buy it, I think it's still available on the washitapeshop.com, and I have a discount code that's always down in the description box. But yeah, I really love how I was able to use this finally in one of my illustrations. Because I like to use it as part of a drawing, and it's country related, it's hard to find another country that suits it, and this one did. It was just so bright, and I wanted to add gold in there, and it had all the colours that I needed, so it was really ideal. I love how it turned out. And the pink one is from another collection from the washi tape shop, which I love. I think it's got fairies on it. It might be called Nest of Fairies, something like that, from the same website, thewashitapeshop.com. And then at the last minute, I decided to throw the leopard print onto her scarf. And I must say, leopard print is so much fun to illustrate. I really enjoy all these patterns that I'm using on the leopards and the zebras and things like that. But yeah, this leopard print is such an easy effect to achieve. I'm just using the Pigma Micron and drawing little half moon areas. So definitely recommend trying that one if you want to give it a go. And here is how my mind map page turned out. I hope you like it. Okay, moving on to the next page in my journal, which is going to be the setup of my weekly pages. Continuing my Dutch door action on the weeklies, this time I've done a vertical Dutch door on the right hand side, and this just gives me a different kind of space. The reason I did this is because I wanted to illustrate one of the tribal women from Kenya on the left hand side, and for that I obviously need a long slender section of page. Normally I have to do something landscape across it, so I altered it to be more of a portrait orientation this time, and I think it's going to work well because it also meant I didn't need to cut anything out of the spine of the journal to get this Dutch door effect. So yeah, hopefully it works well throughout the month. I have done it in the past, but haven't done it for a while, so it's good to try something new. So as I mentioned, I had this vision of drawing a character that was wearing some tribal clothing and kind of representing some of the tribes of Kenya. Now there's 52 million people in Kenya, and there's well over 40 tribes across the country. I think there was quite a number of sub-tribes as well, coming to about 120, I think. But yeah, the tribal aspect of Kenya sounds massive, and so I wanted to somehow represent a part of that. I did choose part of the Maasai tribe because of my interest in the Maasai Mara area, like the national park. If you haven't seen the first video in this series, check that out. I speak all about the national park there and how awesome it looks and how much I want to go there and see the Big Five. So yeah, I tried to illustrate a woman of the Maasai tribe itself. And the Maasais are probably one of the most popular tribes in Kenya and the most well known. They are considered a warrior tribe and were feared for a long time. They probably still feared in relation to cattle herding, and the cattle seems part of their religion and their culture. So I won't go into too much detail about everything because it is quite thorough. I had read a couple of articles which I'll leave linked down below about some of the history of the tribe itself. It's hard for me to comprehend because it's just so different to the life I've always led. But it's interesting to read. Some of it's sad and some of it is nice. So I'll let you just take your own views on that, but I'll leave the links in case you're interested in learning a little bit more about the Maasai. I've drawn this lady with her traditional shuka on, and the shuka is like a brightly coloured red sheet that they'll wrap around themselves. It's common to have patterns like plaid on it, and it's what really makes them stand apart, these beautiful, bright, almost like a cape that they wear. And then another thing that sets them apart is their intricate jewellery. They wear so much jewellery and beads on their ears and around their necks, and they actually make it and sell it to tourists as a way of, earning money. And the Maasai will actually welcome tourists into their village as well. You can pay them to experience a little bit about their culture and how they live, and it would be really interesting to do that, I think. I've watched this other YouTube video that I found months ago before I was researching this, and I ended up watching it, and it's funny, in the comments of this particular video is how you weren't searching for this, but you found it and you watched it, and that is exactly how I felt. So I must have somehow come across it on YouTube. I watched it and I stayed watching the whole thing because it was just so interesting. It was basically a Polish woman, I think, and she married her Maasai husband and moved to Kenya and live in, or was it Tanzania? Might be Tanzania, but they live with a Maasai tribe, and she just tells you all about how they live, and it's just so different to where I'm from that it was just mind-boggling and just so interesting. So that is a really cool video. I'll leave that linked down below as well if you want to learn a bit more. I think that learning about things like this, just little tastings of different cultures and different histories and backgrounds, it makes you more aware and more open with your eyes wide to other ways of life out there, and I think it will make us all more tolerant. So I definitely recommend having a look when you get a chance at anything you can to just be more aware. I'm definitely a believer in that. And so letting you know a little bit about what I'm using here, I just used water-based markers to colour this image in, and then the beautiful bright blue that I used in the background was another Acryla Gouache, just straight out of the tube. I think I mixed it with like a touch of water, but only enough to have on your brush so that it wasn't dry. But yeah, it's just such a vibrant royal blue. And the main reason I did that is because I didn't want to have streaks on my background section. I do hate that water-based markers give streaks when you're trying to colour a big block in. It just really distracts from the piece. So I wanted to make sure I had a nice flat background on my girl. And then once all my weeklies were all laid out, I had one final page that I wanted to do a little arty creation on. I wanted to do a full page design on this page, so I've gone for some washi tape down the edges to frame it and to stop the paint from bleeding off the edge as well. I'm going to be using watercolor on this section. I hadn't done any watercolor in this setup and they were calling to me. Oh no, I did on the cover page. So aside from the cover, I hadn't done any other watercolor. So I wanted to do a nice pretty watercolor scene that I found across my research, and that is the Lake Nakuru, which is a world famous lake for its abundance of flamingos. Now, for decades, you could travel to Lake Nakuru to see 1 million to 2 million flamingos all in the water at once, having a feast on the algae that was abundant there in the waters. But I think in later years, the rising water levels, maybe pollution or over-tourism has resulted in less flamingos coming. But a couple of years ago, they started coming back. So there's now thousands that come, and I'm sure they will get more if we keep looking after the planet. But yeah, I think it would just be an amazing sight to see if you could see this whole cloud of pink flamingos in the water, especially at sunset. What an amazing thing to see. And that's not all there is at Lake Nakuru either. It is home to over 400 species of birds, a herd of hippo, which would be amazing to see near the lake. And then you've got the southern white rhino, some lions, and some of the rare Rothschild giraffes, like I spoke about in the last video as well, that cover the national park. So it would be a really ideal place to visit as well. And it's quite close to Nairobi, so not too hard to get to. So yeah, just painting this lovely sunset shot of the flamingos, trying to keep it really loose and effortless. I didn't want to go into too much detail, but I wanted to make sure you could kind of tell what it is as well. So I just did the base layer in a light wash of watercolor. I don't like to use too much watercolor in my book because I don't want the pages to get all wrinkled or to soak through. So I tried to keep it as loose as possible and dry as possible. But I also wanted it to blend out a little bit. But, you know, they're 180 GSM. They seem to hold up pretty well. So I did the first layer of that for the background. And then I basically just used pink dots in the middle to represent the flamingos. And then after it was all dry, that's when I went in with some pencil and fine liner to really just draw some lines coming out of those blobs to form flamingos' legs and reflections. And so I just kept working at that using the colors that I saw in my reference image and keeping all those beautiful orangey, pinky, purpley tones and just building up some detail across the page. And here's a look at the final weeklies, including my tribal beauty and then the flamingo sunset. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you did enjoy it, please leave a thumbs up on it and do consider subscribing if you want to see more of our little traveling bullet journal series, and stick around just now to learn of the country choices for the month of October, as next month we're heading to Nepal. So stick around if you want to see those and vote for them down in the comments. I hope you enjoyed my Kenya setup, guys. I really enjoyed researching it and illustrating it. I am a little bit makeshift right now because I went to do the choices yesterday, and me, being Torryn, likes to shorten anything, don't want to do things twice. So I was carrying my 2 jars, and then the third one I thought I could do that as well, and I dropped it. So unfortunately we have to have this beautiful sliced cucumber pickle jar for our middle country options. So sorry about that, the aesthetics are all thrown off now. But it's okay, we can continue. So I'm gonna make the choices for the month of October now because we already have our September choices. And I think you guys know that we're visiting Nepal next time. If I haven't revealed that yet, we're going to visit Nepal next month in September. Okay, and we're starting with our small countries. So beneath 8 million. Wait, I always start with my big countries, don't I? That's silly. Let me move that around. Okay, let's start with the big countries. Okay, so the first one is mixing them around, and we have the Philippines. Oh, that would be interesting. I'd love to visit the Philippines. And our medium countries, shaking it around, beautiful pickle countries. And then we have one, United Arab Emirates. Oh, I'd love to go there. Bit of Dubai action would be nice. And then the last one is the smallest countries. Mixing them around, we have one. What is it? It is Scotland. I'd like to go to Scotland as well. Where would you like me to visit next for the month of October? Would you like the Philippines, United Arab Emirates, or Scotland? Please leave me a comment down below for which country you'd like me to visit, and then come along the journey with me. Thanks so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Bye.